Yo, I am Suki in the place to be, 2 pints of... But I'm from Kyoshi, hey, mother don't want it with me, cause I'm a chica, these fans, till I'm... Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in a new location today, because I think the Wi-Fi is better in this room. Disclaimer, you guys, the apocalypse is kind of happening where I am right now. Like, there are fires everywhere, but you know, we're doing our best, so things have been a little slow. I'm probably gonna film the next parody tonight. That is the plan. The audio is ready to go. My costumes are hanging up. Couple pronunciation things. It's Aoma, not Aoma. It is Yoon. My first instinct was right. Avatar Yoon, not Avatar Yun. And then I was right about Auntie Mui. It's Auntie Mui. We begin with a summary of chapter 2. So what happened was, let me open it so that if you hear water in the background, my mom is getting water from the fridge. So we learned a lot about relationships in chapter 2. Kyoshi works at the mansion where the Avatar's mansion where Avatar Yoon lives now, and Genju is there as well. And the kids in the village, Aoma, Jay, and Suzu, are super mean to her, and so they're kind of bullying her, and she's supposed to bring a jar to the mansion, but they like are earthbending it away from her and like pretending to help her but not really helping her. And then Rangi shows up and she's like, what are you doing? And she's mad at them, and she kind of chases them away, but then one of them throws it up in the air and it's gonna like fall down and crash, but before it crashes, Avatar Yoon stops it from crashing from afar. He's not even there. He just bends some rock. He seems really powerful, but I guess he's only an earthbender. I don't know. We're gonna find out more about him in this chapter because this chapter is called, it's probably backwards for the TikTok people, but The Boy from Makapu. I'm not sure if it's Makapu or Makapu. Mom, what do you think? Do you think it's Makapu or Makapu?
Not sure.
She's not sure. Cool. I'm gonna say Makapu for now. And I might change that later, as I am wont to do. Any other things before we start? I don't believe so. All right, chapter 3. The Boy from Makapu. Yoon couldn't hear what they were saying, but it was possible to read their body language at this distance. Judging from the way she gestured wildly in the air, Rangi was ticked off at Kyoshi. Again. He smiled. The two of them were adorable together. He could have watched them all day, but alas, he rolled over onto his back and slid down the roof of the outer wall, using the edge of the gutter to arrest his fall. He let the impact turn his motion into a vault, front-flipped into the air, and landed on the balls of his feet in the marble courtyard, eye to eye with Heiran. Shoot. Impressive, the former headmistress of the Royal Fire Academy for Girls said. Ooh, that's where Azula and May and Tylee went. The Royal Fire Academy for Girls. Her arms crossed behind her back. When the spirits ask for a circus clown to intervene on their behalf, I'll know our time together is paid off. Yoon scrunched his face. His personal firebending tutor had a knack for finding his moments of pride and then crushing them. I finished my hot squat sets early, he said. 500 reps. Perfect form the whole way. And yet, you choose to spend your spare time lounging on the roof instead of moving on to your next exercise or meditating until I returned. No wonder you can't generate flame yet. Ooh. You can train your body as much as you wish, but your mind remains weak. He can't generate flame because he's not the Avatar. It's fine. It's fine. He noticed Heiran never tore into him like this while her daughter was around. It was as if she didn't want to diminish the Avatar's stature in Rangi's worshipful eyes. Okay, so Rangi is her daughter, okay. His image had to be carefully groomed and maintained, like the miniature trees that dotted the garden. The spirits forbid he appear human for a moment. Yoon dropped into the fire fist stance. He paused for corrections, though it was unnecessary. Not even Heiran could fault his body placement, his spinal posture, his breath control. The only thing missing was the flame. She frowned at him, interpreting his perfection as an act of defiance, but gave him the signal to begin anyway. As he punched at the air, she walked slowly around him in a circle. Fire Fist sessions were also opportunities for lectures. What you do when no one is guiding you determines who you are. That's deep. Heiran said. The motto was probably engraved over a door somewhere in the Fire Academy. The results of your training are far less important than your attitude toward training. Yoon didn't think she truly believed that, not for a second. She was simply picking on the parts of him that she couldn't examine and adjust for immediate improvement. If he couldn't firebend yet under her care, then his flaw resided deeper than in any of her previous students. His punches became crisper, to the point where the sleeves of his cotton training uniform snapped like a whip with each motion. He was a pair of images in a scroll, 2 points in time repeating over and over again. Left fist, right fist. Your situation isn't unique, Heiran went on. History is full of avatars like you who tried to coast on their talents. You're not the only one who wanted to take it easy. Yoon slipped, an event rare enough to notice. His motion took him too far outside his center of gravity, and he stumbled to his knees. Sweat stung his eyes, ran into the corner of his mouth. Take it easy? Take it easy? Was she ignoring the fact that he spent sleepless nights poring over scholarly analyses of Yang Chen's political decisions? That he'd exhaustively memorized the names of every Earth Kingdom noble, Fire Nation commander, and Water Tribe chieftain among the living, and going back 3 generations among the dead? The forgotten texts he used to map the ancient sacred sites of the air nomads to such a degree that Kelsong was surprised about a few of them? That's who he was when no one was looking. Someone who dedicated his whole being to avatarhood. Yoon wanted to make up for the lost time he'd squandered by being discovered so late. He wanted to express gratitude to Genju and the entire world for giving him the greatest gift in existence. Taking it easy was the last thing on his mind. She knows that, he thought. Heiran was purposely goading him by calling him lazy. An uncontrollable furry rose in his stomach anyway. Yoon's fingers plowed into the smooth surface of the marble, crushing the stone into his fist as effortlessly as if it were chalk. He would never lash out against a teacher. The only way he could put up resistance against Heiran was to disappoint her, to uphold her accusation that he was a wayward child. His next punch produced a swirling dragon's belch of flame, worthy of the Fire Lord, each spout and flicker rendered lovingly, mockingly in white stone dust. He let it rage and dance like a real fire reacting to the eddies of the breeze, and then let the cloud of particles fall to the ground. To cap it off, make the performance complete, he added the smirk that everyone always said reminded them of Korok's. A clown needed his makeup, after all. Heiran stiffened. She looked like she was about to slap him across the face. The blast went nowhere near her, but it didn't exactly fly away from her either. In the old days, masters used to maim their students for insubordination, she said hoarsely. Yoon restrained himself from flinching. What wonderful modern times we live in. A single clap pierced the air. They both looked over to see Genju watching from the sidelines. Yoon gritted his teeth hard enough to make them squeak. Normally, he could sense his mentor's footfalls through the ground and get his act together, but today was all kinds of off balance. Genju waved Yoon over like he hadn't just caught the Avatar and his firebending master at each other's throats. Come, he said to his ward, let's take a break. Nice. Just making sure this is still filming. Okay, good, it is. The training grounds had alcoves in the walls for stashing weapons, water jars, and hollow discs made of pressed clay powder that would explode harmlessly on impact. Enough supplies to train an army of benders. Genju and Yoon took their tea in the largest of these storage areas, surrounded by straw target practice dummies. The floor was thick with dust. While Yoon poured, Genju plucked a twig that had snagged on a burlap sack and used it as a stylus, drawing a simplified version of a pie show board on the ground between them. Yoon was confused. Two of them had played the game incessantly while first getting to know each other. But Pai Sho had been forbidden to him for a long time now. It was a distraction from mastering the elements. Genju contemplated the empty grid, his long face flickering in recollection of past sequences, lines of shining brilliance and outrageous risks unfolding in the tiles. The markers of age radiated outward from his eyes. The troubles that gave him severe crow's feet and white temples had yet to reach the smooth, flat line of his mouth. "I have some news," he said. "Our emissaries tell us that Tagaka has agreed to sign a new version of her great-grandfather's treaty." Yoon perked up. His master had been trying to pursue a diplomatic solution with the queen of the Seaborn Dao Fei for years. "What changed, Sifu?" Genju gestured at him. "You. She learned we finally found the Avatar, and that he was one of the strongest benders of this generation." Yoon knew that was true. For Earth, at least. It might have been arrogant of him to think so, but it was hard to argue with the evidence that left across the ground. The Fifth Nation Fleet will cease raiding the coastlines along the Shishan Mountains. That literally means Western Mountain in Mandarin. That's funny. Genju said. They've promised not to raise a sail under her colors within sight of the Eastern Air Temple. In exchange for what? For official access to the timber on Yeso Island, though they've been unofficially logging there for the better part of a decade. The other sages are calling it a total diplomatic victory. So much gain for so little. The leaves of Yoon's tea lost their grip on the surface of the liquid. Water was the last element he'd need to master. He'd always suspect he'd have a better time of it than fire. Except, it's not a victory, is it? He said, rolling the cup between his fingers. She's promising to halt her operations in one sector, but a fleet of marauders isn't going to lay down their arms and pick up the plow overnight. They'll cause trouble in the other oceans, maybe go as far north as Chameleon Bay or the Fire Nation home islands. It's just pushing the violence from one corner of the world to the other. What would you do then? Genju said. Reject Tagaka's offer? Yoon took a turn staring at the blank game board, especially at the sections where players usually laid their boat tiles. He shuddered at the images that came rushing into his head. Contrary to what many of the locals thought, Genju did not keep him locked up in the estate like a moonflower that would wither in too much sunlight. In between training, they regularly took trips around the world with Kelsong on his flying bison, Pung Pung. That's such a cute name! To meet important people from around the Four Nations. Sorry, I'm just imagining, yip yip Pung Pung. Okay. The goal was to make sure Yoon had a cosmopolitan upbringing, since the ideal avatar was also a diplomat, never showing bias to one people or the other. He learned a lot by their side, exploring great cities and talking with their leaders. Sometimes he had fun. The last outing was not one of those times. When Genju told him they were obligated to survey the extent of the damage inflicted by the largest coordinated pirate raid on the southeast coast of the Earth Kingdom mainlands in over a century, Yoon had steeled himself for blood. Corpses amid smoldering ruins, a scene of total devastation. But as they flew low over the shores on Pung Pung's back, scanning the seaside villages for survivors, he was surprised to see the driftwood houses and straw huts intact, nearly pristine. No sign of the inhabitants anywhere. They had to touch down and investigate a few structures before things fell into place. Inside the homes, they'd found spears left on racks, tables set with cooked food that hadn't rotted yet, fishing nets in the midst of being repaired. There had been no massacre. By complete surprise, the villagers had been taken, like they were livestock, animals stolen from a herd. Nothing else had been touched by Tagaka's corsairs, except for a common thread of items that Yoon noticed at the last minute. They'd stolen the bells, the drums and the gongs. The watchtowers of any village lucky enough to have one were picked clean. Cast bronze was extremely valuable and nigh irreplaceable in that part of the county, Yoon realized. So were the right quality hides for drumskins. The pirates had made it so that the village warning systems couldn't be reused when they returned. Nearly 1,000 people were unaccounted for. Conducting a raid on this scale with such precision was not only a crime, but a message. Tagaka was more dangerous than her father, her grandfather, and every other crude, bloody-minded pirate that ran the Eastern Sea. Yoon had spent the better part of that night screaming and raging at Genju after his mentor calmly explained that the Earth King was likely not going to do anything to protect his subjects, not ones of so little marginal value. That they were largely on their own to deal with the problem. The emptiness of the Pai Sho board taunted Yoon as loudly as the missing unrung bells. Not if they returned, but when. He put his tea down and leaned back on his hands. We should take her offer and pretend we're glad to do it. It's our only chance of rescuing the surviving captives. It'll buy time for the coastal areas to build up defenses. And if Tagaka is bold enough to sail northwest, there's a chance she'll grow overconfident and pick a fight with the Fire Navy. That's an opponent ruthless enough to destroy her completely. His proposal spilled out of his lips naturally, despite the unease it created in his core. The idea of manipulating the nations he was supposed to keep balance over was frightening, solely because of how easy and effective it would be. He waited for a rebuke. Instead, he caught Genju smiling at him openly. A rare occurrence. See, Genju said, gesturing at the game board out of habit. This is why you are destined to be a great avatar. You have the insight to think ahead, to see where people are weak and strong. You know which threads of the future to pull. There's not going to be a solution to the fifth nation through powerful bending, but there will be a strategy, a line of play that minimizes the suffering they can inflict. And you've spotted it. You're everything Kuruk was not, Genju continued, and I couldn't be prouder. That was meant to be a genuine compliment. Kuruk had been a genius of the highest caliber when it came to Pai Sho, bending too. But according to Genju, who'd known him best, the water avatar had been unable to translate his personal talents into effective leadership on the world stage. He'd squandered his time pursuing pleasures around the four nations and died early. So I guess that means I'll be unhappy and live forever, Yoon thought. Wonderful. He looked across the courtyard where Heiran had taken a post, waiting for them to finish. The woman was a statue. Every piece of grief he got from her was made worse by the fact that she resembled her daughter Rangi so closely, with the same porcelain doll face, pitch-black hair, and eyes tending toward darker bronze than the usual Fire Nation gold. Having a beautiful, adoring bodyguard close to his own age like Rangi was ruined when her spitting image beat the snot out of him on a regular basis. Heiran thinks I'm a little too much like Kuruk, Yoon said. You have to be more understanding with her, Genju said. She resigned her commission in the Fire Army to teach Kuruk, and then she left the Royal Academy to teach you. She sacrificed more than any of us for the Avatar. Hearing that he'd ruined 2 different promising careers for the same woman didn't make him feel any better. That's more reason for her to hate my guts. Genju got up and motioned for Yoon to do the same. No. Her problem is that she loves you, he said. If that's true, then she has a funny way of showing it. Genju shrugged. Fire Nation mothers. She loves you almost as much as I do. Too much, perhaps. Yoon followed his mentor toward the center of the training floor. The transition from cool shade back to the outdoor heat was a harsh swipe. You must know that you have the love of many people, Genju said. Kelsong, the visiting sages, nearly everyone who's ever met you. It's my belief that the earth itself loves you. You feel connected to it at all times, like it's speaking to you. Am I right? He was, though Yoon didn't know where he was going with this. Feeling connected to the earth was the first, most basic requirement for earthbending. Heiran joined them in the court. On the other hand, firebending is unique among the 4 bending styles in that it typically does not draw from a massive element separate from one's own body, Genju said. You don't form a bond with the element in your surroundings. Instead, you generate it from within. Am I explaining that correctly, headmistress? Heiran nodded, equally confused as to why they were discussing the obvious. Take off your shoes, Genju said to Yoon. Huh? Like many earthbenders, Yoon never wore shoes if he could help it, but for firebending training, they'd forced him into a pair of grippy slippers. Tagaka's conditions are that any new treaties must be signed on grounds of her choosing, Genju said. I know I said that diplomacy was more important than bending for this mission, but it would be much more ideal if you had some mastery over fire. In case the pirates need a little show of force, take off your shoes. The sun beat down on Yoon's head. The buzz of insects grew louder in his ears, like an alarm. He'd never disobeyed Genju before, so he yanked off the slippers, rolled down his socks, and threw them to the side. I don't understand, he said. What's happening here? Genju surveyed the featureless training floor. Like I said, the earth itself loves you, and you love it. That love, that bond could be what's holding you back, blocking off the different states of mind necessary to master the different elements. We should try severing that link so that you have nothing to rely on but your inner fire, no outside help. For the first time in his life, Yoon saw Heiran hesitate. Genju, she said, are you sure that's a good idea? It's an idea, Genju said. Whether it's good or not depends on the result. An icy knot formed in Yoon's stomach as his mind made the connection. You're going to have her burn my feet? Genju shook his head. Nothing so crude. He put his hand out to the side, palm down, and then drew it upward. Around them, the marble floor sprouted little inch-high pyramids, each ending in a sharp point. The grounds were uniformly blanketed in them from wall to wall. It was as if someone had hammered nails into each space of a pie show board and then flipped it over, spikes up. Now, let's see you run through the first sun-gathering form, Genju said. The garden of caltrops surrounded them in a tight ring. Get out there, right in the middle of it, and show us your stuff. Yoon blinked back tears. He looked at Heiran pleadingly. She shook her head and turned away. You can't be serious, he said. Genju was as calm as a drifting cloud. You may begin when ready, Avatar. And that, my friends, is the end of Chapter 3. If you hear sounds in the background, my mom is listening to me read this week. So cute. She's just eating ice cream at the table over there. She's like, She's already listened to the whole book. So let's do a summary. This chapter is all about Avatar Yoon. I'm going to keep calling him Avatar Yoon until they realize that he's not the Avatar. I love how we start the chapter with Yoon being like, I ship Rangi and Kyoshi so hard. Like, that's how we start the chapter. Basically, we learned that Heiran is Rangi's mom, and she is, like, important in the Fire Nation, and she trained Kuruk a little bit, and she's now Avatar Yoon's firebending tutor. And we learn, as expected, that he has not figured out how to make fire yet. Maybe it's because he's not a firebender. Oh, it's so sad. I kind of feel bad for him. Yeah, so we kind of just established that he doesn't know how to bend fire and that Heiran is a little hard on him. And then Genju tells us a little more about the political conflicts. Tagaka is with the Fifth Nation pirates. And she, like, made... Tiana, let me look at this. Hold up. This is what happens when you read blind. It's like, what did I just read? Okay, so Tagaka has agreed to sign a treaty, but she has a couple conditions, and the conditions seem a little sketch, it seems. And also, like, apparently the pirates, like, captured a bunch of people in the Earth Kingdom. Like, they straight up just took them away from their homes. Yikes. Yeah, we learned that Yoon is nothing like Kuruk, but in a good way. And Yoon is like, is it in a good way, though? That's pretty much it. We also learned that he's trying really hard. Like, he seems like a fun, chill guy, but it feels like that's a bit more on his exterior. On the inside, he really wants to prove himself, show that he's the Avatar and he deserves to be the Avatar and all of that. And he travels the world with them and learns about the different nations and stuff. But he's an earthbender. I don't know what to tell you guys. He is an earthbender and he's not the Avatar. I don't really get the end of this chapter. So Genju made these little pyramids. Oh, they're spikes. I think these pyramids that he made at the end are spiky. and he wants him to run through them. I don't really know. Someone just said he wanted Yoon to go through the fire forms over the spikes. Oh! Take away his connection to the earth. Got it. That makes more sense. Thank you. Essentially, he's just doing an exercise with him that looks a little stressful and difficult. That's pretty much all that happened in this chapter. Oh, I thought it was so interesting. I'm gonna reread this paragraph because it's really cool. This is Genju talking. On the other hand, firebending is unique among the 4 bending styles in that it typically does not draw from a mass of elements separate from one's own body, Genju said. You don't form a bond with the element in your surroundings, instead you generate it from within. That's so cool! And that makes so much sense as to why Zuko straight up could not bend when he changed sides, because it was coming from within and it was coming from that place of anger and hatred and, regret and all of that. And so he had to change the way he was perceiving his own element and firebending as a whole, and he had to find a different place inside himself from which to firebend. So that was a really cool insight, and I kind of connect with fire even more because of that. We're stressed because of the fires, but it's okay. The car is packed. This book was in my evacuation bag, so hello, when I'm done here, I'm gonna put it back in my evacuation bag. Oh, someone said, imagine what Kyoshi could do if she could bloodbend. No, here's the thing. We talked a little bit about this last time. Canon Kyoshi and Fanon Kyoshi are different. And we've only, now that I've only read 3 chapters, I've only seen a little bit of it in chapter 2. But someone was saying last time that, Fanon Kyoshi, everyone's like, oh, Kyoshi's driving the bus when Aang is fighting Ozai, and like, oh, she blah, 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 and she's like, ah! Like, she's just crazy. But it seems that Canon Kyoshi is much more reserved and chill, and I don't think she would bloodbend. I feel like she would have the same reaction that Katara did, and be like, ew, this is horrific and terrifying, and I would never want to take someone's will away from them in that way. So, oh, spoilers for the second book. Don't tell me, I won't look. Yikes, maybe she does use bloodbending. Well, that was my interpretation, but we'll find out in Shadow of Kyoshi. Thank you, Sarah _999999999999999. Who do I think the most powerful avatar is? Here's the thing, guys. And I might revise this answer as I continue reading this book and as I read Shadow of Kyoshi, and we'll learn more about Korok and Setzo, and probably Yang Shen as well. Kyoshi did break, like, magma. Like, she didn't just bend a big town or rock or something. Like, she made a division through the ground down into the magma, like into the plates. I don't know much about, I almost said geography. I don't know a lot about geology, but like, that takes a lot of strength. That's pretty, but Korra is also very strong. Like, Korra's just physically very strong. Like, when you watch the show, it's so funny. She lifts people up all the time, and it's like, dang. What if someone could soul bend someone's soul? That sounds like a Dementor. Soul bender? Yeah. Do you think Katara was useless in ATLA? The slander! You come into my live stream. No, I'm just kidding. My mom's laughing now. What? I thought if you had said, do you think Katara is useless in Legend of Korra, I would still say no, but I would understand where that question is coming from. I think they could have used her more. But useless in ATLA? I'm not even gonna, like, deign to begin to give an actual answer to that question. Your friends think she did nothing? Did they watch the Alright, fine. I guess I am gonna answer this question. Have your friends, D'Angelo, have your friends seen the last episode of Book 2, The Crossroads of Destiny, in which Mr. Avatar Aang himself gets shocked with lightning and would have died if Katara had not saved him with the spirit water? Have your friends seen the Agni Kai, in which Zuko probably also would have died or would have been horrifically, like, injured for life if Katara had not saved him without even spirit water, just healing him? Not to mention, and that's just like healing stuff, not to mention all the other stuff she's done that was important and valuable and awesome. Someone said if it weren't for Katara, the war wouldn't have ended. Yeah, not to mention Katara and Sokka being the ones to have found Aang. It was Katara's crazy water bending that made the iceberg. Y'all, I can't even with y'all. Don't even start. I love everyone's being like, if Katara wasn't there, yes, thank you. Everyone, come in the comments. Please tell D'Angelo's friends. I know it's not you, D'Angelo. Someone said about Katara, she took down Paku and the misogynistic society their norms were based on, down with him. Go off, Katara. Go off. What are your thoughts on the live action movie? What live action movie? Isn't it sad that they never made a live action movie? So sad. They really should have made a live action movie. That would have been cool if they had made a live action movie. There is no live action in Ba Sing Se. And literally, as Aang is battling the volcano, Momo, like, you know, and everyone's like earthbending the trenches, Momo flies over with a little rock and puts it in. It's like, thank you, like, you did your best. Momo for President 2020, can you imagine? She's a bi-icon, or as I would like to say, a bicon. Bicon Avatar Kyoshi. Ooh, who is more powerful, Zuko or Azula? I don't know. Like, you know, I want to say Zuko, but that doesn't necessarily mean who would win and, like, just who's more powerful. And people are gonna be like, lightning, what about lightning? But, like, lightning isn't everything. That's a very interesting question. Feel free to, you guys, I'm gonna deflect. You guys can answer. My mom just texted me from the other room. She says, Zuko is more powerful because of his heart. Go off! Yes, Mom! Beautifully put. I love my mom too. Everyone's like, Azula, hands down. Someone said, how are we defining power though? Excellent thing. Appa 2020 for president. Y'all, someone commented, yes, Katara is GOAT. And this person immediately understood, Katara is not a GOAT, whoever said that. For that user, GOAT is an acronym, greatest of all time. So they weren't saying that Katara is a GOAT. I love that so much. That's so wholesome. Which parody was the hardest one to work on for you so far? Love that question. Probably, well, here's the thing. I got better and I got more strategic at making them as I went. So I'm probably gonna say that it was Skylar Sisters. It took so long and I did it all in one day. I started recording in the early evening and I started recording the vocals in the early evening and I finished recording the filming of it at like 4:30 in the morning. I was like changing costumes and like, it was probably that one. That in terms of the filming, I would say. In terms of the writing, part 10, The Rightful Fire Lord, took a while for me to be happy with the lyrics. To the point where I stopped writing it and just was like, stop. And then I came back a couple days later and I was like, okay, let's try again. And I straight up, I don't always rewatch the scenes because I feel like, you know, I have every minute memorized. But with The Rightful Fire Lord, I went back and I rewatched the scene for inspiration. I was listening to what they said. And so that's why Katara says, I say, you're going down. It's because Katara quite literally says, you're going down. And so that's why I put that in there. Good question. Air and firebenders could cure climate change. Listen, if we just got some airbenders up here, we could use all 4 nations with these fires on the west coast of the US. If we got some waterbenders to help put them out, some firebenders to help bring them down, airbenders to get all this smoke out of the air. The numbers were in the 300s yesterday for air quality where I live. It was so, I couldn't focus. I really wanted to record part 11 last night. And I did sound mix some of the audio, but I was so exhausted yesterday just from breathing in smoke. Like, we have air filters running everywhere, but it was crazy. Someone says Eliza is Water Tribe. I dig it. Could be air, but I dig Water Tribe. How do you think this series would have been different if Iroh had become Fire Lord? It's so interesting. We really need a prequel series about Iroh. We really do, because I want to know, was he already... I want to know about when his morality shifted, because someone pointed this out somewhere. I was reading it somewhere, that Iroh laughs about burning Ba Sing Se to the ground in that flashback. He laughs about it. So I want to know when his morality shifted. Because I feel like by season 1, when we first meet him, he's just, because of loyalty and because of loving Zuko and taking care of him and being a Fire Nation person, he's like still with the Fire Nation. He isn't like defecting or anything. But he seems like his morals are in the right place by the time we start the normal series. So what I want to know is, what's his journey to get there? Because if he had become Fire Lord, like if Lu Ten hadn't died, let's say, and Iroh burned Ba Sing Se to the ground, or maybe he wouldn't have burned it, but maybe he would have. And then he would have become Fire Lord, and he would have become the Fire Lord that burned Ba Sing Se to the ground. So, I don't know. It's a really interesting question. That's fascinating. Someone should write a fanfic. Can somebody please write a fanfic about Iroh becoming the Fire Lord? I would love to read that. Someone says, I think he changes once Lu Ten dies and he realized what war really is. Excellent. Excellently put. I agree. You know what? That's great. That must be the moment. His son dies and he's like, no, this is not. What are we doing? I love that. I love that so much. Azula, Tiny, and May. Someone said, who is the best firebender and why is it Rongi? Mood. I barely know her and I already love her. Boomy can apparently bone bend. I need to see sources. Someone says, can we talk about General Iroh in Korra though? We can. I mean, because it's still Dante Basco. That's why we're all obsessed with it. It's the voice that we all fell in love with when we were 10. I really like The Phantom Tollbooth. I think that book is fantastic. I just love it. I think it's just brilliant. It really makes you think about words. Oh, that's why I like it. It's all about linguistics. It's sneakily about linguistics. That's why I like The Phantom Tollbooth. Got it. Could have an animal in ATLA and LOK, what would it be? You know, those sky bison. Can you imagine? Like, I'm looking at my backyard right now. I'm trying to imagine a sky bison back there. Can you imagine? Is Miyuki a normal cat? I think she's just a normal cat. Weird. So not that. Turtle duck. That's what I would want. I would want a turtle duck. This one's mine. Hey, we were married that night. Write in the comments, who should sing This One's Mine? Maybe it should be for these two. Maybe like Rongi, who would sing it? Kyoshi might sing it. This one's mine. Oh, someone started Avatar because of my videos. A couple people have been commenting that on the videos and it makes me so happy because it's literally my favorite TV show of all time. And I have a lot of TV shows that I love, so. My choices are Zuko getting his scar, Zuko fighting Zhao, which is very cool, and you know what, I really do love that moment in that one, you know, where Zhao was like, brr, and Zuko's like, ah, and then he's like, brr, and then Zuko's like, ah, and then it's like, brr, but then the music changes, and Zuko's like, brr, and Zhao's like, ah, and Zuko's like, brr, and like, y'all know what I'm talking about, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That part's cool. But the third Agni Kai is just brilliant. It's brilliant. And I think part of what makes it so well done is the music that they use. So not only is the third Agni Kai like the culmination of Zuko and Azula's arcs throughout the show and their relationship and their arc together, you know, it's a culmination of that. But the music is so tragic. And you're cutting back and forth between Toph, Sokka, and Suki taking out the airships, and the music is dramatic. And then Aang fighting Ozai, and you know, the music is like, bah, 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 bah. But with Zuko and Azula fighting, it's just strings. It's like strings, drum, strings, drum. And it's just, you can feel the pain in the music. Zuko doesn't want to be fighting her. He doesn't want to be fighting his sister. But, obviously he has to. And she's just lost it so completely and utterly. And she's in so much pain emotionally, which sucks. We could have. And I will sing you happy birthday. I can make that promise because that is very low commitment. I will sing you happy birthday in multiple languages, maybe. I keep on falling. I'm gonna film part 11 tonight. Now I have to film it tonight because I've told you guys that I'm gonna film it tonight. Sometimes you make me do. Sometimes I do. Oh, I know who Catherine Lynn Rose is. Oh yeah. She's so cool. I love her so much. I showed her music to like my mom and my brother and my dad, and I was like, look at this music. Like, I'm obsessed. I love her song. And she's actually like writing original content and like original songs. Like, I'm just doing parodies and stuff. So that's so exciting. Like, she could actually do something with this. And if she wants to go on to write I think there will be one day. She wants to go on and write that Avatar musical that's going to be on Broadway. Power to her. I will be there in the front row. I won't audition because I think Asian actors and Pacific Islander actors and Native, like Alaskan and Native American actors should be in that. But I will be right there in the front row watching it. Alrighty, thank you everybody. See you next week. I don't have anything else to say.